Shock horror. I've decided to cancel my Freddy's Flowers delivery. To find out why, watch on to the end of the video. Now, if you love all things flower arranging, crafting, with some charity shop shopping thrown in too, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. All you need to do is to tap the red button marked subscribe, and that means next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your tablet or your computer, one of my videos will be waiting for you. Now check it out. This is my latest delivery from Freddy's Flowers. I love getting my flowers from Freddy, so you might be wondering why I've decided to cancel my subscription. And the reason is I've decided to try and grow my own flowers. Have you been following along with my Novice Gardener series? I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description underneath the video. Now, while I love getting my regular delivery of Freddy's flowers, sometimes they arrive unannounced. Nothing to do with Freddy. It's definitely account user error, so it's all my fault. And rather handily with Freddy's Flowers, you can pick and choose when you want your flowers to be delivered by opting out month by month for the deliveries you don't want. And sometimes I forget to do that. That's the reason why I finally decided why these flowers are going to be my last ever delivery from Freddy's Flowers. They arrived unexpectedly for me. My husband took them in, he put them in my cool workshop so I could attend to them late when I got home, but he forgot to tell me, so it was a day later when I discovered my flowers next time I went into my workshop. So these flowers are probably now a week old. They look brilliant, but all I've done is cut and plonk them in a vase, and I haven't really enjoyed them. And that brings me to my second conundrum. I bet you can't even see that I've got alstroemeria in this vase, or even a beautiful stem of eucalyptus. I've chosen the wrong vase. So if you'd like to find out more about how to choose the right vase for your flowers, watch on to the end of the video. Although I have picked one of my largest vases to arrange these flowers in, it's not quite big enough because you can't actually see the individual blooms. I picked this vase up for about £10 from IKEA. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I like it because it's a modern classic. And although in my mind's eye, I think the opening to the vase is quite large, in fact, what it's done, it just made my flowers sit upright in a column. It's not allowing them to flow naturally. And I think a better vase for when you've got lots and lots of flowers is to choose one with a slightly fluted outline. Something like this, a classic urn style vase. Yours doesn't need to be as old-fashioned as this. In fact, this is a Wedgwood vase which came from the charity shop a few years ago. I think I paid £4 or £6 for it. It's got the tiniest of chips on these little seashell handles. I think it's going to be a better fit for my flower arrangement because it's got these fluted edges, and hopefully the flowers will be able to relax and you'll be able to see the individual blooms. I could just arrange my flowers by cutting and plonking them, but a little bit of mechanics always helps you out. And this is a scrunched up bit of chicken wire which I'll put into the mouth of the vase, and that will just help support my flowers. I just need to remember to add water. I've added water to my vase, so next thing is to push my little ball of chicken wire into the mouth of the container. Because the vase is fluted, I don't need to fix that mechanics in place. The high sides of the vase will hold it quite nicely. And now let's see what flowers we've got, and a week later see what's survived. Everything's been so congested in my vase, I really haven't been able to enjoy the individual flowers, and I wasn't really happy with the emergency cut and plonk that I did with the vase arrangement, and therefore I've been overlooking it. And the whole point of flowers, surely, is to make you feel better. The first thing I like to do when I arrange flowers is to introduce myself to each of the flowers. Get to know what you've got in your vase. So very carefully, I'm going to take them out of my original vase and see what I've got. A lovely stem of spray carnations. This flower here has really opened out. And if you love spray carnations, have you seen the video I posted a while ago on 6 ways to arrange them? If you haven't, I'll make sure I leave a link to it in the description underneath this video. So 1 carnation. Some solidago, goldenrod. I bet it looks amazing from where you're watching, but as I look up close, I can see that some of the leaves have started to shrivel and go yellow. And it's almost on the point of going over. When it first arrived, the flowers were in bud and now they're in full bloom. And then they start to lose that yellow vibrancy and become more of a dull mustard colour. And this is what blew me away when I first unboxed my flowers. A beautiful stem of eucalyptus, but it was hidden inside all the other flowers. And I'm quite pleased that it's lasted the week. Sometimes it does dry out quite quickly. Alstroemeria, again, I could not see this in my finished vase arrangement. It's in beautiful condition. It's only just starting to open out. So well done, Freddie. And then the showstopper, the bloom chrysanthemums. These came in bud form, while the heads were locked into a little stockingette cap, which I had to carefully remove, and then the flower opened out. I don't particularly like a chrysanthemum bloom, but they certainly are eye-catching, and it's always good to have a distinct focal area when you arrange a vase of flowers. And last but not least, the lovely Lisianthus. From a distance, you might mistake the flower for being a rose. It has these lovely sort of conical twisted buds on it, which start off green, and then as they open out, it develops the colour. And these ones are a lovely creamy green. And inside, there's the little yellow stamens, adding an extra bit of interest, but also talking to the yellowness of the goldenrod. So one of those. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 varieties of plant material. I've got 2 stems of eucalyptus, 2 stems of the Lisianthus, 2 of the spray carnation, 2 of the Alstroemeria, and 3 of the goldenrod. Now, flower arranging, we always like to work in odd numbers. So the only odd numbers I've got are the solidago and the chrysanthemum blooms, and everything else is a double, which can make it quite difficult to arrange your flowers. But of course, if you're having your flowers in a vase, which is up against a wall, you don't really need to concentrate on the back, and you can have your 2s out to the side and then have your 3s towards the front. And that's what I'm going to do. Now let's get on with the flower arranging. So I normally like to add in my greenery first. 2 stems. Oh, actually, that doesn't look too bad, does it? 1 out to each side. I'm just going to make sure I adjust my handles so that when I'm arranging, everything looks square and right on. I was thinking about to the front, to the side. What do you think? Let's just see how I get on, and I can always change my mind. So recutting my stem ends and sliding them through the chicken wire and letting them sit. Now I'm quite conscious of the fact, with only 2 stems at the moment, that things might wobble around a little bit. It takes a while for everything to lock into place. This is quite heavy. It's a bushier piece of greenery than this side here. So perhaps I shouldn't have drawn that to your attention. You're never going to get quite the same visual weight with your materials, but perhaps I could even that out a bit. If I take that piece off there and perhaps that piece off there, it will bring it, it'll make it look a little bit more balanced. And then the pieces I cut off, if I take off those lower leaves, I could have a little bit of green poking out at the front. Now that is just way too small. It's going to get lost in the vase. So I might keep that to one side and put that in the jam jar later. The next thing I'm going to do is to come in with my solidago, which I'm going to use as another bit of foliage. And I'm going to pick off the leaves that have started to go a bit yellow. As I said at the beginning of the video, I've had these flowers now for a week, so they've done me good service, but I just haven't been able to enjoy them. I've just put them in water because I knew I had to, otherwise they'd die. And I've pretty much just put the vase to one side and never enjoyed it. So it's quite nice to be able to take a little bit of time to sit down and actually enjoy the process of arranging my flowers, but to make something that's actually going to be visually appealing. So I am actually going to want to admire it, take some pleasure from it. I've got 3 pieces here. I'm wondering whether perhaps I could come upright at the back. Can you see the sort of shape I'm going to be making? Making my arrangement much bigger, more visually attractive, more imposing than it was with just everything, well, cut and plonked into my original vase. So again, taking off the shriveled leaves, the ones that have gone yellow. Actually, oh, can you see I've got slightly different shaped pieces of greenery? This one here, quite large with a point. The one that's already in the vase, the same sort of shape, but much more a skimpier look. And this one quite truncated across the top. So I just need to be careful when I put those in, because I'm conscious of their overall shape. So do I want to keep that one there, or do I want to substitute in that larger piece at the back? I think I might go grandiose and have that large at the back. I don't think I recut the stem. Always a good idea to recut the stem ends because they do seal over a little bit, and you don't want anything to impede the uptake of water. And now perhaps with this, it's got lots of shriveled leaves, and I'm just going to get in there and run my fingers up and down without damaging the stems. I want the eye to be drawn to the beautiful colour and not the bedraggled state of the leaves on my plants. I'm just wondering whether I could thin this out a little bit so it doesn't look so bulky at the top. Perhaps I could trim off the lower branches from either side just to bring it down more in sort of scale to the one I've got in the front, creating that little, a nice balance. I don't want my arrangement to look lopsided. It needs to be visually balanced. I could spend ages doing this, taking off a little bit of leaves. I'm going to just turn the vase around to me because I'm doing a forward-facing arrangement. I'm going to be bold. Cut off one more side shoot and then come a little bit lower. I'm taking 10 centimetres off this stem, so this can sit towards the front of the vase and start to splay out. And then the other one, I'm going to cut there and bring it down to the edge, like that. That one's still not sitting up straight, but once I get other flowers in there, hopefully it will stay where I want it to go. Also, my eucalyptus has wobbled. Let's lock that back in place. So I've got a few leftover stems of the solidago, that single little bit of eucalyptus. Let's come back now to put my 3 bloom chrysanthemums into the arrangement. They're quite large, they're quite showy, which is the whole point of having a focal flower. And I'm going to get them in now because they do take up room, and then I can work my way around the other flowers when I have time. Now what I am going to have a look and see is, have I got any flower that's discernibly bigger than the other? Do you think that's the biggest one? I think it is. I'm going to put my largest flower lowest down into the arrangement. I am going to take the leaves off the chrysanthemum. They always look a little bit shaggy. Hold my flower up against the edge of the vase to see where I need to cut it. And I'm going to position it as if it's just got its neck resting over the top edge of the vase. Ooh. Like that. Pow! Just looking in the vase as well to make sure that stem's actually in water. The way I've angled it, it's hitting the vase just here. So I think I am, although it is in water at the moment, I will have to top up, because the next couple of days the water will be taken up by the flowers, but also with the warmth of my living room, it'll be evaporating as well. So this one I can have a little bit taller, feeding that through the chicken wire. And then a little bit taller again. So this time I'm just going to take off, recut the end of the stem rather than significantly reducing it in height. So if you are ever going to do a cut and plonk arrangement, now this I would say isn't a cut and plonk, it's a slightly more considered arrangement. I would highly recommend you cut your flowers to different lengths. It just gives you the variation height, just adds a little more interest to your vase. So the 3 flowers there, all at slightly different heights. And now I've got some gaps, so I'm going to go back in with my next lot of flower, perhaps the Alstroemeria next, and fill in some gaps. So this can be a little bit tricky if you've only got 2 flowers, but I'm sure we can work with it. So with an Alstroemeria, you get the flowers here. Sometimes the stems on the flowers are shortish and sometimes much longer, and then you normally get a collar of leaves about here. I take those off, but keep the natural greenery up at the top of the flower head. So I've got a massive gap in the middle, so I'm measuring up and then eyeing where to cut. So I'm going to have that stem there. Now that has filled up the gap a little bit in front of my solidago here. It's just covering up the bare stem, but you can hardly see it as you're watching there, but I know it's there. And then this other one, I think I'll have it coming out towards the front. And by, again, cutting the height of the stems and angling them, so they're not all going up and down into the vase like they were with my straight-sided vase. They are going in, some of them upright, some of them fanning to one side, some of them fanning to the other side. And with this Alstroemeria coming out towards the front. And if I leave my vase arrangement halfway around, you can see it's got quite a flat back. That's going to be the bit that's going to be leaning against my, well, not leaning against, but sitting against my wall. And it's starting to develop this profile at the front. So as I spin round, this is where I put my Alstroemeria in. And you can see that standing out at the front. So next flower, I am going to go for, let's get that solidago to stand upright. It moves every time I move my vase around. I'm going to go for the Lisianthus next, a single stem with lots of branched pieces. I could put it in as one stem, but what I might do is to try and trick your eye into thinking you've got more flowers than you really have, is instead of putting it in as 2 stems, so I can only put it in 2 places, I'm going to see if I can split it up a little bit and just distribute some of those stems around the vase. So I have got 1 tall stem and 3 smaller stems. So I could either put it in as 1 piece and 2 pieces, or put them in as individual flowers. And as I look, I've got a stem here with no flower on the end, so it's going to cut out that stalk. And I'm going to be looking at my gap, measuring up. And again, I've taken quite a lot off this stem, probably 15 centimetres. I'm going tallish towards the back. So working my way down in that chicken wire. No, that's too tall. So gently easing it back out of the vase without dislodging anything else. And cutting a little bit shorter. So slide that down. That's perfect. put it in just here. That's gone into the front. I might think about bringing some of that white out to the sides. As I've got my white alstroemeria off to my right hand side, I might put these in on the left hand side just to balance out that placement. We're coming up above the eucalyptus. Off to the side there. Oops. And as I turn the vase around, I can see that stem didn't even make it into the water. Always make sure your flower stems are in water. And then just keep looking back. Stand back and take a look with a critical eye, but not overly critical. You need to give yourself a pat on the back too. But just have a look and see whether the flowers are telling you where there's a gap. Oh, should I come up really tall? I might, oops, that just pinged off. I might come up really tall at the back. That might help the solidago stand upright as well. Yes, I like that. So I can see the tall piece at the top, and then when that eye bounces down to the alstroemeria of the lisianthus. Oh, I've just broken my stem. I'm not sure the camera can pick that up, but I've got a tall stem of a lisianthus here, and then your eye bounces here, and then it bounces to the edge here. Apart from it would if I hadn't broken that stem. I think actually I'm going to have to take that one out. That is a casualty. Stand back and admire. And then come back in with the other side shoots of alstroemeria and see where I can put those. It's always nice to have the buds coming out to the outer edges. So you've got the solidity of the flower in the centre, which moves to the middle-sized flowers and then to the buds on the outside edge of the arrangement. Which then leaves me with my 2 stems of spray carnation. And look, I've got a bonus gift here. If you put that in water, it'll rot, and then you could pot it up and grow your own spray carnation. I've got 2 leggy bits here. I might make that into 2 stems. And with your carnations and spray carnations, when you cut them to length, you need to cut between the knobbly nodes on the straight bit of stem, rather than trying to cut through the node, which is a point of weakness. So to balance out the lisianthus on that side, other side, I'm going to have a little bit of white here. Oh, I might just bring that, cut it down a little bit and bring it slightly further forwards. Yes, so I can see it. And then perhaps one of the open buds that can come towards the centre. And then there I reckon I can get 2 placements here. I've got a sort of shorter stem there, which will fill that gap there. And then a longer stem here. Where should I put that? I think again towards the back. And there we have the finished arrangement. Now, I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to be putting these into a jam jar arrangement, so what I might do is take off the lower leaves and just fill out a little bit at the back, because although the arrangement is front facing, you do get a sort of 3/4 view. And it just means that I will actually make use of these extra stems, rather than sometimes, as I do, you put them to one side thinking you're going to use them and you never quite get round to it. So I can just neaten off in the back just in case a judge comes to visit the house. I want to make sure everything is tip-top. Back view, front view. Now, if you really enjoy flower arranging and can't get to a flower class near you, did you know that I run a monthly online flower arranging club? You need to become a member of my YouTube channel to join. That means not only subscribing, you have to pay a membership fee direct to YouTube. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can leave me a comment underneath this video or check out the video description and join, and you'll find the joining details there. Right then, what did you prefer? The cut and plonk in my straight-sided vase, where personally I thought the flowers had all been a bit constrained and rigid in place, or something in a fluted vase, which gives a much more open arrangement and you can really see those flowers. So I can definitely see every single flower that came in my delivery. The Alstroemeria, Lisianthus and the spray carnation, as well as the showstoppers, the big spray carnation and the solidago. Well, that's all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time.